the great state of Michigan. And the show begins now. Here's your host, Audrey Dahlgren.
Hello and happy Wednesday, folks. How are we doing? How are we feeling? As always, this is the #Wednesday Wisdom Show. And I want to start it off by saying this. If you love someone, tell them. If you're appreciative of them and all the things they may do for you, tell them. And this ties into what we're going to be talking about in the second half hour of the show. The Milwaukee Bucks beat the Phoenix Suns last night to win their first NBA title since 1971, 50 years ago. And after the game, the finals MVP, Giannis Antetokounmpo, had tears in his eyes during his post-game press conference when he started thinking of all of the people who have helped him get to that very moment. It was a beautiful thing. And as I said, we will take a deep dive into that matchup, series, and win in the second half hour of the show. Also, if you have any wisdom you'd like to share, you can do so by putting it on my Facebook page, The Audrey Dahlgren Show, or on Twitter at Dahlgren Show. And don't forget, you can always listen to each of my episodes live by downloading the Spotlight Radio Network One Touch app. As we told you yesterday, former Okemos football coach Mike Crum is our guest for the first half hour today. Mike stepped down from his post as head coach last week due to a very big promotion at his full-time job, where he is now the deputy director for the Michigan State Police. Mike, how are you? And thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you, Audrey. I am doing great, and just to kind of tap into your segue of the opening there, boy, I am so grateful when you said that about all the people I've been able to work with, the former coaches at Okemos that over this past week have reached out, former players, parents. It's been overwhelming. I'm excited with where I'm at professionally, but I also miss the coaching aspect for sure.
Yeah, it was, it's always nice, to reflect and kind of think about, who has helped you get to where you are. And I could definitely understand where you'd be feeling that gratitude for sure. And, I want to ask you this. So first, just tell us about your new title at work and how excited you are to have this role now within MSP.
Sure. The new title is I'm a Bureau Commander for what's called a Professional Development Bureau. And it's all about the development of our personnel, the training that we provide, the leadership, the everything to do with police training, civilian training within our ranks. It has to do with certification of police officers across the state. And as you know, in law enforcement, there is no greater need at this time, I think, for developing of our officers, enhancing our profession. And so for me, this was a job that was unbelievable. I spent many years at our training facility during my career. I was an instructor. I was a teacher. And for me, it went right along with coaching. And so now to have the responsibility to, oversee this for the department, for our agencies and impact not only our agency, but hopefully other law enforcement in the state, it was an incredible opportunity and one that I'm just thrilled to be part of right now.
You mentioned the responsibility piece. And so what added responsibilities then do you have? Because I know that that played a pretty big factor in you having to step down at Okemos just because of how time consuming it's going to be.
Yeah. And, the responsibilities go multifaceted. And what I realized is when I was advised of this, promotion, it was right before our dead week. So we took, in high school football, I think all athletes take a dead period. And so it was right before that. And typically during that dead period, I would be up north putting together everything, all the final touches for my season in the fall. And I just had some moments where I could not stop and focus on football, where I was so focused on what I had to do in this new position. And so I really had some heart-to-heart with myself, with people that I am close to about the new responsibilities, what it's going to take. And at the end of the day, I felt that I would be shortchanging my players because I have to be committed to my full-time job, and there was no way that I could do that. And, it was evident this week, this past week, we had called a meeting. I wanted to meet face-to-face with the parents and with Mr. Fuller and just talk talk to them about the situation and some things going forward. And I couldn't get out of my meeting. I couldn't get to my residence nearly till 7:30 that night. And I just knew that I had made the right decision with how busy I was going to be and not being able to be there full time for the kids. It just wouldn't be fair to anyone involved. And so that was the ultimate reason for my decision, even that as difficult as that was.
Yeah, I was going to say, it was probably pretty hard for you to walk away in a sense because, you were there for 3 seasons, but prior to that, you had been an assistant coach for 7 years. You are a graduate of Okemos. And so could you go more into, I guess, that piece of it and how difficult it was because, you have a passion for football?
Well, the hardest thing to leave is, of course, the players and the relationships you build. And, our senior captain, Miles Bell, is one of those kids that anytime you start relationships, it's just like breaking up. It's very difficult. And for me, I grew up in that community. I played high school football there. I coached under Keith Froelich. I played for Pete Schmidt at Albion College. I played under Coach Farraco, who was my offensive coordinator. And so you develop all of these relationships that are all tied to one thing, and that is a passion of mine. Football has been in my blood since early days of my life, and it was extremely difficult. And that, again, the relationship part of the kids, and then for me, the personal struggle that was the hardest was the timing. Ideally, if I would have known this was coming and could have foresaw the future, back in November after our season ended would have been the time to set up the administration for success and the program. But the timing is the toughest thing for me right now. I wish it would have been 6 months ago, but unfortunately I couldn't control that. And like I said, there's no way I could have done both. And so trying to do the best thing for everyone involved was to walk away at this time.
Yeah, nobody can predict the future, so
yeah.
That's understandable. Nobody knows what's going to happen tomorrow, and so that makes a lot of sense. Now, too, I want to ask you, so how do you think that Brad Lilly is going to do in the interim role? Because he's been immersed in the program for quite some time, and just about every single level, starting as an assistant with the 4th graders. And so how do you think that he is going to do taking on this new role?
Well, Brad has been involved, and Brad's a quality person. And Brad is one of those guys that has just sacrificed so much time to be there. And so for me, stepping away, Brad was really our guy to hand the program over to. We've had some turnover in our staff, Audrey. We had our offensive line coach who back in December had his 4th child and knew that he could not continue on. We have our defensive coordinator that unfortunately became very ill within the last 2 months and had to step away from coaching. And so we've had just a slew of things that have occurred. But Brad is a person that's been loyal to the program. Brad has been around the Okemos from the youth program. He served as the president down there all the way through. He was my JV coach last year. So he's familiar with the kids. He's familiar with the dynamics. And, I know he's in a tough situation because we've had some kids that have chose not to play this year, and so that's going to make it more challenging. But if anyone can get it done, Brad's a solid guy. He's a character guy, and I think he will make this the best experience for these kids possible.
Yeah, we talked about that quite a bit yesterday because he is a little concerned with where the football program is headed because, as you mentioned, a lot of kids had left prior to you leaving, and then maybe some more decided that they didn't want to play after you stepped down, and you mentioned the coaches and some of the turnover there. What do you attribute that to, or if you had to pinpoint something, or, what's kind of led to this right now?
Well, I don't know if there's one thing that you can point to. I know that, the classes that are coming up, they've not had a lot of success, and so their confidence level has been low. And when they see, a player transfer to a school, or they see a coach in my situation that can't continue, I'm sure they get mixed emotions, and so I think it's a culmination of a lot of things. I struggle to understand sometimes how you cannot be 100% committed regardless when change happens, that you love the sport or what it is. But I think there's just a lot of different things that may have played into some of that. And I was saddened to hear that after I had stepped down that I was told that there were some players that decided they didn't want to play then. And then a couple of my coaches had some tough choices to make because they were, men that had been with me since years. I mean, since literally 17 years coaching at different levels in that school system. So I just think that was kind of a tough fallout from that.
No, and that makes sense. And, because as of Monday, there were 18 players on the team. And I know that Brad has been kind of trying to get people to buy in and have to have more players come out. And, he's urging if anybody wants to has ever had an interest in coaching to hit him up, and come out and be a part of it. And I just am curious too, because this is something, because, Okemos is a large district. You guys you're one of the biggest in mid-Michigan. You probably have roughly, I think, 1,500 students in your school or so. And so what other factors maybe might attribute to these low numbers? Because you have very talented athletes at your school. Yes.
Yeah. Well, this is something I've pondered a while, and I knew from my experience in the youth program, you have to have a strong youth program to have a successful program. When you look at when we were growing up, and Audrey, just to give you some background, I came from our youth program. I was a high school coach at Langsburg High School, as a JV basketball coach under Greg Mitchell before, as a varsity assistant at Okemos way back in the 1989 season. And one thing I know is you have to have that strong youth program. And when I was coaching down in the youth level, I had a group of kids that we were able to bring up to varsity, and they graduated in 2015. We brought 25-some kids that graduated as seniors that still played. And that was our playoff year with my oldest son, Kyle Crum's team. And then in 2018, it was my youngest son, Carson Crum's team. We had the same impact. We had 20-plus kids that stayed with the program, did well, and as you know, that was obviously our best year in almost a decade, where we made the playoffs and beat Jackson and had some phenomenal success there. But one of the things that struck me is that when I took over in my first year in 2018, our eighth grade team did not have a team. They started together as a team, and then for whatever reason, there was my understanding is there was some disagreement among parents, among the coaches that were there. They completely split off. And what happened is those eighth graders with the transfer rule, they never came to Okemos High School. We lost several players to various schools, and I'm talking very skilled players, players such as out at Holt. His name escapes me right now, but he's going to Syracuse. We lost one to Belleville. We lost two to Hazlitt, and so there wasn't a foundation set at the lower levels. And so when this group of seniors came in, this is now their senior year. They've had many kids that left the program and didn't have that interest, and it's hard to gain that back. One of the things that I was fortunate enough to in my last 3 years is I would average about 5 or 6 kids that would come out for the first time as juniors or seniors. They'd never played before, but there was, there was excitement from kids playing. They had great experiences. But we get kids like, Tommy Bolesky, a 3-sport athlete, would play football for the first time, and he'd have a great season. But it was a challenge because it was his first season. I mean, Tommy was a kid who's a raw athlete. Our playoff game, he caught like 7 passes for 104 yards, had a great year. But those are the type of kids that you need in a program from freshman year on. And then they're the type of kids that go on to play in college and do great things. And I just think that we have really struggled in setting up the feeder programs, if you will, with strong numbers in our community and trying to get that moving forward.
It certainly does make a big difference, and you just laid it out very well there when it comes to the youth piece. And if you had to, if you could give any direction to the athletic department at Okemos, or maybe even the school board, what would you say about the steps that need to be taken in order to build that youth program back up?
Well, one of the things that we have talked about, and most of the schools around us, Hazlitt, Holt, Mason, DeWitt, East Lansing, they have middle school football as part of their middle school programs right now. So they have 7th and 8th grade football that is administered by the school district, by the school, and run by the school. And in Okemos, we tried that 2 years ago. We were not successful. We could not get that done this year because of various reasons. And then all of a sudden, we're in the same boat where we're trying to run a feeder program, and we've got, for lack of a better term, volunteers and parents that are trying to organize it when it should be a school sport. And so we need to get on level with our competitors if we're going to be competitive. And I know Mr. Hood's going to work on that this year. It's just for us and the timing of this, it needs to be done. It should have been done a couple of years ago, actually.
Yeah. And I know, too, there's been quite a bit of transition at the school in leadership roles, too. And so that has to play, I would assume, somewhat of, well, I don't want to assume, but I would imagine that has to play somewhat of a factor in it as well.
Oh, sure. And we've had a new AD came in after Ira Childress, Brian Fuller, and Brian has done a great job. Brian is, I think, a fantastic individual, and Mr. Hood coming into his new role as a superintendent, he's faced with a lot of challenges, and I don't understand the things that he is facing, the decisions he has to make, because I know that is a very difficult spot that he's in, and I support them and the decisions they make. I just know that it's difficult when your competitors have advantages over you, and things are more challenging. And Audrey, one thing is I don't. Last year, I look at last year, that was a struggle for everybody. I don't know. I know every school board. I feel terrible for the Lansing kids that did not get a season. I know those are difficult decisions, and so I don't second guess them. I always look at the situation and try to make the best out of it. And I think even last year with our team, although, we did not win a game, if you were to talk to our opposing opponents, our coaches, they will tell you that we were competitive. They would tell you that our kids played hard. They would tell you that, we did everything we could with the circumstances that we all had to deal with. So from that standpoint, I was pretty proud.
Yeah, I mean, and you guys did, compared to a lot of other districts in the area, you guys probably had the toughest route to even play. So, with some of the setbacks and not being able to, essentially, too, kind of with the school board kind of limiting you. So that makes a lot of sense. I want to ask you one more thing, or a couple more things, if you just have the time. I wonder, too, because sometimes if, do you feel as though, I guess, the school board and the athletic department are on the same page?
I'm not in those conversations enough to really comment on that. I would like to think that high school athletics, as it was when I went there, was critical to my success. The skills I learned as a football player, as a teammate, and now as a coach, I get to use every day in my current position. I've used them almost every day in my life, and I just know that if you want to have a top level school, I think you have to be well rounded in all areas.
Yeah, and a lot of people, athletics is a great tool for, building success for the rest of your life. I can attest to that. I was an athlete in high school, and it teaches you a lot of fundamentals when it comes to discipline, hard work, etc. The qualities that come from it as well. And this is the hashtag Wednesday Wisdom Show, I know that you probably have some wisdom or things that you've bestowed upon your players over the years. So is there anything that you would like to share when it comes to that aspect?
I have always preached to my kids, the importance of team, the importance of treating others the way they would like to be treated. And really, I always went with, some things that we talk about in my workplace. You do what's right, you do your best, and you treat others the way they would want to be treated. And when you look at things from those lenses, I think you can solve most of the issues you're going to face. I think when you put others before yourself, I think you're going to see, great things happen. And, one of the things that in my new position I'm probably most proud of is that, I was always told by some great leaders in our agency, when you move up or you get the opportunity, don't ever take a position because of the prestige, because of the rank, because of the pay. Take a position because of the difference you can make in other people's lives. And for me, that's what coaching is. That's what I'm probably going to miss the most about it. And just now I just have to stay focused on making that difference with all the great people I work with every day now here.
And I have no doubt about it that you will do that, Mike, for sure. I wish you the best of luck on all your endeavors. And I do really appreciate you, being so candid and open about what's going on right now. And because I do think a lot of people are concerned, but from a caring standpoint, And,
oh, sure.
And but enjoy the day. And I know I'll be talking to you soon.
All right. Thank you again. And have a great day.
All right. So, Mike, as mentioned, very candid and open, and so appreciative of that because, as we talked about a lot yesterday on the show, and if you missed it, you can go back and listen to it. But just a lot of those conversations centered around the lack of numbers, the drop off, and sort of what's going on. So that's very much appreciated. All right, we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're talking hoops. The Milwaukee Bucks are your 2021 NBA champions, and guess what? So is former Lansing Sexton and Michigan State alum Bryn Forbes. We're going to be back shortly to chat about it all.
Thinking of a new air conditioning unit for your home? Hi, Peggy Doty with Doty Mechanical. A new Carrier high-efficiency AC unit will lower your energy usage and increase your home comfort. Current Carrier Cool Cash offers and available utility rebates mean your savings have never been better.
Call Doty Mechanical today at 327-7777 or visit us at dotymechanical.com for your free estimate. For heating and cooling, the names to know, Doty Mechanical and Carrier, turn to the experts.
Jeff Bezos is sharing his thoughts following his out-of-this-world experience.
It felt so serene and peaceful and the floating. It's actually much nicer than being in full one gravity. It's a very pleasurable experience just from just the way it feels.
Bezos blasted off into space from West Texas yesterday morning using a rocket his own company, Blue Origin, built. The Amazon founder left his job as the company's CEO earlier this month, saying his new day job is space exploration and the Bezos Earth Fund. Apple says they're pushing back plans to have employees return to the office, a resurgence in coronavirus variants cited as the reason. 3 days a week in September had been the plan, but it looks like it'll be more like October at the earliest now. Mobileye is testing their autonomous vehicles in New York City. The company specializes in the chips used for the vehicles. They're testing 2 vehicles now. The plan is to eventually test 7. Tech Report, James Flippin, NBC News Radio.
Live across the Great Lakes State, you're connected to Michigan's most engaging and influential radio and television program, Michigan's Big Show, starring Michael Patrick Shields.
Great to be with you, Michael Patrick. You're the show I would want to be on. Forget those other ones.
Michael Patrick, it's always a pleasure to be on the air with the Key and B Airways. Thanks for having me on again.
That's a very good question.
Those are all great questions. Good morning.
Thank you. Michigan's Michael Patrick Shields.
Trust matters, especially when it's your money. Mark and Jay at North Coast Wealth Management work hard to build a relationship of trust by providing thoughtful, objective guidance and placing your interests first. Invest with knowledgeable financial advisors who are on your side. Call today and tell them you're a friend of the show for a no-cost, no-obligation consultation. 248-626-2000 and ask for Mark or Jay. Securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor, member FINRA SIPC.
Jack Ebling here with Forest Acres course manager Brian Harris. Brian, it's just about time for some new product. You've got them all here at Acres and terrific club fitting.
Yeah, we've got some of the best club fitting in the state of Michigan. We utilize the TrackMan technology with all the major brands. So if you're looking for clubs for yourself or that special person in your life, then we're the place to go.
Lots of different manufacturers.
Lots of different ones from all the major brands, Titleist, Callaway, Ping, and more. So please come see us for your club fitting today.
Stop out at Forest Acres. Take care of your golf game.
The White House says a fully vaccinated staffer has tested positive for COVID-19 after meeting with Texas Democrats last week. A White House official emphasized that breakthrough infections are to be expected, and the fact that the person is having mild symptoms is an indication the vaccines are working. A congressional aide in House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's office has also tested positive. Well, after a year of waiting, some Americans are finally going to be allowed into Canada without having to quarantine beginning next month. The Canadian government says as of August 9th, U.S. residents who are fully vaccinated can cross the border without having to quarantine after arriving. However, they'll have to provide proof they've been immunized against COVID, be tested for it before their trip, and have no symptoms. Health updates. Sarah Lee Kessler, NBC News Radio.
I'm Tony Cuthbert with your Spotlight Sports Update. The Bucks are NBA champions for the first time in 50 years after beating the Suns 105-98 in Game 6 of the NBA Finals in Milwaukee. Giannis Antetokounmpo went off for 50 points and 14 boards, earning NBA Finals MVP honors. The Bucks become just the fifth team to win a title after trailing 2-0 in the finals. Chris Middleton netted 17 points and Bobby Portis posted 16 points off the bench and the victory. The Tigers' winning streak is up to 5 games after a 4-1 victory over the Texas Rangers at Comerica Park. Robbie Grossman and Eric Haas each had a solo homer, and Tarek Skubal allowed just 1 run in his start. Matt Manning gets the nod for Detroit tonight, while Texas sends Jordan Lyles to the mound. And Tigers starting pitcher Spencer Turnbull will undergo Tommy John surgery and miss the rest of the 2021 season and most or all of 2022.
Welcome back to the Audrey Dahlgren Show.
It's my team. It's my quarterback.
The Spotlight Radio Network.
There was certainly no shortage of drama last night in Game 6 of the NBA Finals. And at one point, it looked like this series was going to go to a coveted Game 7. That would have been fun. But that's when the Bucks superstar Giannis Antetokounmpo found another level to guide his team to their first NBA title in 50 years. Coincidentally, Giannis dropped 50 points in the win as well. And I think what makes all of this so fascinating is the fact that he wanted to win it in Milwaukee, with Milwaukee, for the city of Milwaukee and the fans of Milwaukee. There was no other place he wanted to go to win a championship. When he signed his 5-year Supermax contract extension prior to the season, he did it because he said there was a job that needed to be finished. And that saying, says a lot. And in order to do that, it was going to be hard, but that's the way that he wanted to do it as well. It screams class, in my opinion. And Giannis also mentioned after the win last night that he could have went anywhere to win a championship, and realistically, he could have. He said it would have been easy to go somewhere else and win a title, go to a super team, do his part and win, but no, he stuck it out and he grinded it out. He saw it to fruition, and that is why he's going down in the history books. So this is the other thing that, at the beginning of the show, I opened by, saying when, you appreciate people, tell them. When you love people, tell them. When you know that, they make a difference in your life, tell them. And that is exactly another thing that he did following last night's win. He went on to thank all of the people in his personal life and honestly, kind of, who he won this title for.
Just like the whole journey, man, in order for me to be in this position, how much my parents sacrificed. How much my parents sacrificed, man. I saw that every day in my life. I saw that, and this for my mom. She worked extremely hard every day for me to be in this position. And she never pressured me to do other things. This is for my dad, that he's watching from above and he can see it. And this is for my significant other also. That she every day she helps me be a better person. She let me do what I'm supposed to do. And she take care of my son and then my next son, and for my brothers, because a lot of people, like, I can be stubborn sometimes. I can disconnect myself from the world because I want this so bad. Like, I wanted this so bad, and I was able to get it. That's why I was, tearing up. But like, people helped me to be in this position. Like, I didn't do it by myself. Like, every freaking day, people helped me. And I want to thank my dad, my mom, my significant other, Mariah, and my brothers and my son, and the people throughout the journey that helped me.
All right, Alex.
That's refreshing. Yeah, you gotta love it. I mean, and he's kind of putting the rest of the league or the superstars in the league kind of on notice. I mean, obviously the growing trend in the last 5 years, if you've been following the NBA, it's no mystery that teaming up with some of the superstars around the league to try to create quote unquote a super team to compete for the finals and jumping ship wherever you need to go to do that. And Giannis with his comments yesterday, and you kind of brought it up a little bit in your intro of just talking about it would have been easy, to go somewhere else, and kind of downplayed that route. And I'm wondering if if you finally see somebody that stayed with the team that they drafted, smaller market team, and allowed them to build the contender around them, it would have been easy to jump ship and go go play with LeBron or AD or Kyrie or something like that, and for him to stick around and get it done. I mean, I think a lot of NBA fans who have been having issues with the super team is the mold of that. It's got to be refreshing, and I'm wondering if that's kind of going to be a growing trend now as Giannis kind of paved the way and showed like, hey, you can do this, and you're in the team that drafted you. You don't need to go elsewhere looking for greener grass. And kind of even just downplaying that whole process in its entirety. So yeah, I loved those words. I mean, obviously the gratitude pouring out is obvious. So you gotta love Giannis. He's a great guy, great player, and he does it the right way.
I think it also speaks to investing in people in terms of So obviously they offer him this huge contract prior to the season starting. And, that would be difficult to turn away in a sense, depending on what your values are. And yeah, as he mentioned, he could go to another city, another franchise, and he speaking to it there. But I think when you invest in people and then people also feel it reciprocated and kind of like the love, as he was mentioning, I think that he really probably fell in love with the city and the fans and wanting to bring them something that hasn't been done in decades. And it just blossoms into what it is. Like, I don't know. I always just believe that, if you're invested in something and you know that you're appreciated, you're going to work 10 times harder. You're going to want to perform. You're going to want to do a good job, and you're going to want to provide that type of, gratification, I guess, in a sense, or type of, can't think of the word right now, but you're just going to want to be able to put that much more effort in to do something that Giannis was able to do
absolutely.
For Milwaukee.
And he was able to do that. And I wonder, I'm just thinking of factors of why he stuck around. And I have to imagine that, being from overseas and coming into a new country, especially at the age that he did so. I mean, you grow that is your home in the United States, and you don't really have a familiarity with, the surrounding areas. And it's probably such a hard learning curve just to, get acclimated in one area. So once you do so and you feel comfortable and you've built relationships of the other side of the world, basically, it's probably a little bit, you're probably a little bit more inclined to stick around as opposed to, floating around other places. I mean, we see it with, even as with Dirk Nowitzki, a guy overseas, and he stuck around in the same place for his entire career. So I wonder if that overseas aspect has anything to do with it, and if that'll be a growing trend, but I have to imagine it's part of it. But yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, I mean, I just love Giannis. I mean, he's just such a great personality and character. He's got that subtle humor, and then obviously does things the right way on the court as well. And I hope to see continued success from him. And I mean, just for the Bucks franchise as a whole, I mean, if you're a fan of basketball and you're the fan of the NBA, you have to at least appreciate what they were able to do. I mean, obviously with Giannis, but I mean, he wasn't the number 1 overall pick. I mean, if you think about back when he got drafted, I think he was like 13th or 14th overall, seen as a huge project. So, I mean, for them to recognize that talent, develop it, and then, finding guys like Chris Middleton, who was a cast-off in the Pistons trade with Brandon Jennings. I mean, I think on the drive with Jack, we were talking about that with the guy out of Minnesota, and he was basically saying, they weren't seeking Chris Middleton. Like, he was just his contract fit in that scenario. I mean, obviously they thought he was a pretty good player and they had hopes for him, but they didn't see him to coming in and contributing the way that they did. So the fact that they were able to find a guy like that and just build the entire thing within, homegrown, not going out and trying to buy in a bunch of big fish in the free agency market. It's the blueprint of how you're going to win a championship if you're a small market team. So if you're the Detroit Pistons or a Detroit Pistons fan like me, I mean, that is pretty much the mold. I mean, you're going to have to find your superstar, but then you're going to have to build around it, create a great culture and things like that, which they did. And I mean, you got to give them hats off to that, regardless of who you root for.
Yeah. And acquiring Drew Holiday was massive.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, obviously, that was huge. I mean, but at the time, that wasn't considered like the marquee free agent. I mean, he was a very good player, an all-star caliber point guard, but yeah, like finding that right piece, the guy that come in and that just fit well with their culture and the things that they do and the way they run their offense and defense and everything. And that's a huge fight. I mean, that's the way it's got to be done. They didn't just blow the whole thing up, sign LeBron and hope that 2 other people come along and we'll just figure it out from there. I hope that's a growing trend that goes away. That the whole super teams. I mean, it was kind of fun while it lasted, but I'm a big fan of watching teams build, within and through the draft and things like that. So hopefully, with seeing Milwaukee do that, the teams are more inclined to kind of go that way instead of trying to, find the superstars and things like that.
I think that's what also too made this series so compelling and why people loved it so much, because when it was initially announced that it was going to be Phoenix and Milwaukee, 2 franchises who have, Phoenix had never won and still has never won since its inception. And then you have Milwaukee, 50 years. It was just fresh. And, Phoenix in a way kind of resembles some of that. I mean, they don't really have, I mean, Devin Booker obviously is making his name, and, he could maybe be one of a similar piece like Giannis, in the future and building around him. And him investing in him and having him stay there. Yeah,
that was so beautiful about that series. I mean, we were talking about it in round 1, I think, and just kind of the possibility, because I mean, Phoenix looks so good, and obviously Milwaukee was strong. Just to how nice that would have been to seeing 2 fresh teams that we haven't seen before ever, really. And and you touched on it with Phoenix. I mean that is also another team that really kind of fit that same type of blueprint. So, I mean, whoever would have won the championship this year, I mean, it proves, that can still get it done. You don't need to be the Los Angeles team or a team in Miami or New York to build a championship roster. You can do it in-house. And, 2 teams, proved that 2 smaller market teams that they found their superstar. I mean, it's still the NBA. You still need a superstar. You don't necessarily need 3 of them, I guess. That's being proven too. But because really the other thing with the super teams, that's great and all if they're all healthy. But as soon as one of those legs go down or one of those superstars go down, and we see it with Brooklyn and we saw it with LA, you're at a huge disadvantage. Obviously with Giannis missing 2 games, and they were able to get a victory with that. So building that team and having a nice core around that one superstar, still can get it done. And Phoenix and Milwaukee proved that.
And I also really enjoyed Monty Williams last night. And how I don't know if you saw this, but, he kind of went over into, I believe it was the Bucks locker room and, offered some words and just, how good of a series it was and congratulated them. But then, in his post-game press conference, he almost was brought to tears just thinking about, how close they were to getting it done and how bad he wanted it. And that's another testament to caring. I mean, when you care, you're going to give the ultimate effort that is there.
Yeah, and I'd be remiss too. I do feel a little bit bad for Chris Paul. I mean, I'm glad that he finally got to the finals. I mean, with his illustrious career. I mean, he obviously had his struggles throughout the pro season, but kind of sad to see him fall short. I would have loved to see him, get a ring before his career was over. I'm a big fan of Chris Paul. I love the way that he plays the game and conducts himself on the court. So it would have been nice, to see him get that. But at the same time, because I mean, I feel like even if Milwaukee doesn't win one this year, they're still going to be a contender for the next couple of years with Giannis still, but very, very much in his prime. So that window would have still been open, but I think the window for Chris Paul, unfortunately, may have closed because, I mean, if I'm Phoenix and you finally feel like you've got the young core built around, I mean, I'm trying to probably go add another young piece at that point guard position to grow and build over the next few years while that window's still there, as opposed to hanging on to Chris Paul, who's obviously his best years are probably behind him.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that kind of stinks, but I mean, it is what it is, and I still love to see Giannis grab the championship.
Yeah, and yeah, good night overall. And it would also be remiss not to mention former Lansing Sexton and Michigan State graduate Bryn Forbes, who is now a first-time NBA champion in year 5 of his professional career, going really, undrafted out of Michigan State in 2016 to now an NBA champ.
Yeah, that really is a wild story. I mean, he was always the Robin to Denzel's Batman at Sexton. I mean, throughout his entire years there, and then even out of high school, he was a little bit underregarded because of. I mean, he went to Cleveland State, wasn't really a Big Ten type recruit. I mean, size and things like that had something to play, but found his way to Michigan State. And then after his career, goes undrafted. Nobody really expected him to even make an NBA roster at any point. I mean, a lot of the talking heads around East Lansing are thinking, he'd be able to make a good career overseas and things like that. But then just to see him find a fit with San Antonio and got some opportunity there, and obviously blossomed a little bit and became a piece that people wanted, and then winds up on Milwaukee, another team that fits that same type of underdog mentality and mold. Great to see that. Obviously, you gotta love when a Spartan dog is able to clinch a championship in any way. And he had there's a few games in there throughout the playoffs that he was a big part. He caught fire a few
Huge
times.
factor.
That who knows if they're able to make it all the way there without him.
Yeah, I know. He had a couple of really big threes. That's a strong suit, obviously, shooting from outside. And definitely nice to see Forbes get that first NBA title underneath his belt. And who knows what could happen and transpire in the future. I'm really looking forward to, coming up in 2 weeks, about 2 weeks, July 29th, the NBA draft will be here. And speaking of Michigan State, Aaron Henry, you're going to be curious to know, we haven't heard much about him. Yeah, I mean, I haven't really heard much about him and how, I know he was invited, one of the 69 to get invited to the NBA Combine, back in June. I believe it was back in June. So he was one of 69 to get invited to that. But be curious to see, where he will fall.
Yeah, I'm looking right here. The ESPN mock draft, they have him falling in the early second round. And I think most of the mocks have him going somewhere in the late first, early second. So, I mean, obviously the upside there is you can't deny it. I mean, he's got a lot of basically all the tools that you're looking for from an NBA dude. It's just whether or not he can, piece it together and polish his game. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if he finds a spot in the late first round on a team that doesn't necessarily need rookie contributions right away, but can allow him to kind of develop and grow and see what he is, 2-3 years from now, and if he can contribute.
Yeah. Late second. Yeah. I don't know. I might make early second.
Yeah,
We'll go with
late
you.
first, early second is around where they're plugging him. ESPN has him early second, and then the Sports Illustrated mock draft has him late first right now, and those are the only two that I've looked at. But so that sounds about right. I'm hoping he goes late first as opposed to early. I mean, obviously, if the dollars for one, but just for what kind of situation he would be going to, I want to see him on a team that doesn't necessarily need to force him into any situation and allow him to develop in his own time, because I think that once he is able to do that, he can be an NBA player. Yeah,
and he needed to do that at Michigan State as well. That was a big reason why he decided to come back after last year and play this last season, just because from a development standpoint. And so that'll be interesting to see as well. As for Michigan State's current basketball team, yesterday we were able to speak with incoming freshman Pierre Brooks for the first time since he arrived on campus. He said about 2.5 weeks ago, if you remember, or if you're following Michigan State basketball, you would know that he is the last of the 3 freshmen with Max Christie and Jaden Akins to arrive on campus. And so it was really nice to hear from him yesterday. He's getting adjusted to campus life. You know, he said it was kind of weird because he's so used to going home and his mom and dad are there. Now they are not there.
Those typical adjustments.
Those typical adjustments that every college or freshman has to make, doing things on your own that mom and dad may have done for you in the past. So that was one thing that he brought up. The second thing that he mentioned is that he's been used at the 2 and 3 position quite a bit since he's been on campus.
Interesting.
So a lot of people, I think, were wondering kind of where he was going to fit in,
Yeah.
Because all of those, we've talked about this multiple times, but all 3 of those freshmen are very versatile, and they could play a number of different positions on Michigan State's basketball team. But I think he is probably very well fit for the 2 and 3.
Yeah.
And they don't need a point guard that's been pretty well solidified with Tyson Walker,
Yeah.
AJ Hoggard. And so there's that. So he brought up that piece of where he's kind of been fitting in and playing. Then he also mentioned, Izzo's been on him quite a bit because he said that he has been doing pretty good in the workouts, but he's definitely not in the shape that he needs to be in.
Yeah, and that's probably, just directly correlated to the fact that he was the last one to arrive. There's just, especially for high school kids, it's really hard to replicate that level of conditioning on your own. Unless you have a great team of trainers or coaches or whatever that's pushing you throughout the offseason and things like that. It is really, really hard. Division I college basketball, that level of shape that you need to be in and from a conditioning standpoint, it's totally, totally different than even at the high school level. So for him to be late on campus, that's probably part of it. And I saw on Twitter too a little video of the freshman kind of little mix that they had there, and he may be out of shape, but from a size and mass standpoint, he looks like he is Big Ten ready, right? He could have passed as a junior just from looking at him. He has the body for sure to come in and I think play right away and compete right away from a physicality standpoint. Which might ease the transitions a little bit for the other freshmen who Akins and Christie a little bit thinner bodied, and we'll see how that works out. But I'm really high on Pierre Brooks because I think out of those 3 recruits, obviously Max Christie, talent wise, I think he's far ahead of the best recruit they have, but he's very, very likely only going to be there for a year. I think Pierre Brooks is going to be that guy that's really, really good, but not quite NBA ready, so he's probably going to be a dude that's there, as a junior and as a senior, and those years that you get, it's kind of like looking back to the 2016 class when you had Miles Bridges and Cassius Winston. Cassius was probably the lowest ranked and the lowest contributor his freshman year, but would you rather have Cassius Winston's career or Miles Bridges as a Michigan State fan? And I think you're probably leaning towards Cassius because of what you're getting out of them as a junior and senior is much, much more than what you're getting out of even those one and dones as a freshman, which is also why it takes senior leadership to win national championships.
And he was mentioning too, about the leaders on the team. Asked because we've seen the snippets on Twitter of them working out, like as you mentioned, but not really haven't been able to talk to them too much within their summer workouts. And some of the guys that Pierre mentioned, who as in the older, that senior leadership, well, Malik's not a senior this year, but
it's not technically just because I never know what people
it's hard
are because of the COVID stuff because there's some of those
but basically Malik Hall has stepped up and has been very vocal as a leader.
Upperclassman.
Yes, upperclassman. Sure. Gabe Brown has been very vocal and stepped up as a leader, which that is an encouraging sign for Michigan State basketball
those are two guys
fans.
They need to make big steps. I mean, even as good as the freshmen are, I mean, you got to have those senior dudes and those upperclassmen to win championships, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Well, that does it for our hashtag Wednesday Wisdom Show. As I mentioned at the beginning, if you have anything that you'd like to share, doesn't have to be a quote or a mantra. Maybe you have something to say about Okemist's football program or the NBA Finals. You can put it on my Facebook page at The Audrey Dahlgren Show or on Twitter at Dahlgren Show. And don't forget, you can always listen to each of my episodes live by downloading the Spotlight Radio Network One Touch app. Have a tremendous Wednesday.
Hi, this